Awesome. Hello. Welcome to another episode of HR Nightmares. I'm Lisa Leath, and I am here with Amy Conway and Beth Looney from the Leath HR Group team, and we have a super special guest with us today, Tammy Benson, who's somebody that I met several years ago. She is a female powerhouse in the Wilmington, North Carolina area, running a traded sector type business that's headquartered where Leath HR Group also does most of our work in southeastern North Carolina, but they do work probably globally, right?
Definitely globally.
Definitely globally. So we're going to let you kind of explain your evolving role in the company that you've been working at, and that has really been a family business for many, many years. But she's grown up with the company and taken on increasingly responsible roles, and is now the Chief Operating Officer for Advanced Marketing International. I think sometimes you say AdMark, right? Is
Correct.
like short. And we'll tell you where you can look up this business and find out more about what they do as a company. But today's topic is going to be all about owning your own career. And I think this is a great panel of ladies to have a discussion about this, because not only have we each owned our own career, but we're now like counseling other employees and managers on how to advance their own careers. And so we are people developers as well. So I'd love to come at this conversation from both aspects, owning our own careers and how do we get where we are today, and then also like what do we do to coach people and people develop folks on our own team. So I'm going to turn it over to Tammy and let you just kind of run us through, like, how did you get to the Chief Operating Officer position at AdMark?
Well, as you mentioned, we are a family business. We've been in business for 34 years in 2023, which is a very big milestone. I did grow up around this business. We represent suppliers and manufacturers internationally and wholesale distribute or help move those products. So one of our niches is finding a certain product for a manufacturer. Maybe they're having a trouble finding that material, and we connect those parties and help it during that transaction. And really, we create relationships for years on a global level. So we do import and export lots of materials, primarily that go into paints, coatings, inks, those types of things. Grew up around the business, as you have mentioned. Came to actually work in the business about 12 years ago, moved back to Wilmington, started at the bottom, worked my way up through logistics. My background was real estate previous to that, so lots of transaction kind of based experience, and brought that into my role, moved in through logistics. I've handled the finances, general manager, and just kind of worked my way up to COO where I am now.
Awesome. I mean, that's a crazy business. I have a lot of questions just about the business too.
Yeah.
And having worked in all the different roles makes you the prime candidate, family or not, for being in a senior leadership role. You really kind of have to understand all of the aspects, it's almost like you put yourself through a rotational program in the business, but it sounds like a very complicated business. What's the most complicated aspect of your role?
Of my role, the most complicated of my role would be the people. I think, which I love.
People are easy.
I love that part of the business. I love our team. But we work with people on a daily basis, be it customers, be it suppliers, be it our team and their growth. That's probably the hardest facet. I've got a great sales team, a great logistics team. We've developed a really great accounting team now. That I'm going to have to go with people is going to be the hardest role.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
That keeps us in business. No,
Yeah.
yeah, we like to hear that. So when you're looking at people, I mean, it seems like you've got so much institutional knowledge. Are you part of the training and onboarding, even in your role?
I am. I'm doing the hiring, too.
Okay.
So the interviewing, the hiring, depending on the department, there may be someone else who sits in when we get past the second interview. So I'll do a phone interview, then an in-person interview, and then if we make it to step 3, then maybe my salesperson will be sitting there with us, or another logistics person or accounting. It works for us. We're all kind of very involved in that process. We are a smaller company. There's 12 of us. So being a good fit into our team is extremely important, and finding out what someone can bring to the table from a skill level that's really going to complement what we already have in place and help kind of fill the gaps.
I think that's such a great story of just the amount of roles you took on in the company before you moved into the higher level leadership positions. And I think that is so important for executive teams and C-suite to have these different breadths of experiences so they truly understand all parts of the business and have some empathy for all of those different parts of the business. Can you speak a little bit to why like that's been valuable for the current role that you're in to have some of those experiences?
If you don't understand what your team is working on and going through, how can you lead them through that? So that's a big thing for me. And I'm a leader who likes to lead by example. So if you have a problem and I haven't encountered it and you're at my door, I'm going to try and help you work through that and let's find a great solution. But you know how to handle those issues because maybe you've been there in something similar. It's helped have an overall knowledge of the entire business and then to be able to help our team work through all of that. And if you're a leader who can't help, it's hard for me to feel like you're leading.
Yeah. It's interesting, I think, staying at a company for as long as you have in all those variety of roles. It seems like a lot of people make the decision to leave and take their experience, knowledge, and take it to the next group. So obviously you've stayed. What were some of the things that like were interesting and intriguing and wanted you to stay with them?
Well, I'm family. So
Well, there you
it
go.
is a family.
Yeah, but that can
Besides the
sometimes
family
make it
tie.
harder, especially with a growing business. Like they're like, hey, respect your family, but we need to go hire this woman from outside who's got all this experience and exits and like, so that can be harder.
There's definitely a different seat at the table, if you will, when it's a family business. I feel like I've been pretty adamant that the company has to be handled as its own entity. What is best for the company in the long run will be best for the family. Yes, I've been approached. I could have left, but I'm continuing a family legacy that I really want to see continue. I have 3 daughters. We have people on our team who've been with us for 15 plus years. They are family as well, and I want to see those families continue this legacy as well. So it's not easy. Family business is probably one of the most difficult types of business to be in and grow and keep that generation 2, generation 3. The goal is to make it, a generation 4 business. We'll get there. I'm pretty confident, but it's definitely a different seat at the table when it's a family business and you're a family member.
So tell me how you balance that. So like, how do you balance the family and work life when you leave that office and the work when it's all the same, when it's all the family members?
It can be difficult.
Yeah.
I think through the past 12 years, we've become really good at trying to say, okay, this is family time. So holidays, we're not going to talk about work. We're going to try really hard not to talk about work because there are other members of the family at the table that aren't involved in the business. That becomes kind of a hard tightrope to walk. But I think for the past probably 6 years, we've really kind of clung to that. You have to keep it separate. There are going to be disagreements, just like in any business. You may disagree with the superior or your direct reports, or there's a way to handle all of that. It is just a delicate balance, and you kind of have to get everybody on board. The goal is to continue the legacy. Let's keep it going. And this is the method of how we're going to do that.
I got to tell you, it is hard though, because like you've owned a business with your ex-husband.
We work with
He's
a
now
lot.
the ex-husband.
Yeah.
Like I still own Leath HR Group and advise on how the business is run, but my husband is the president and he's running it. And it's really hard to not talk about Leath HR Group when I get home from Vanica because I want to know what's going on. Like it's my baby. And, but there are days where like I'll get too much information about the business and I'm like, I just want to be your wife. I just want to be a mom. I want to talk about fun stuff or vacation. And I'm sure I do it to him back, but being in business with family is hard. It seems like it'd be easy because you all have the same interests, right? But it is very hard.
One thing I felt when I was in that same situation was we didn't turn it off. So I'm glad to know that you do that.
It's hard to turn it off.
I mean, because it would be
You gotta do
Saturday, Sunday, after dinner, in the morning before work.
Yeah.
And it was like we talked about it all the time. And it was just too much talking about it. Because you don't talk about that. Like we wouldn't talk about the business with you every minute of every day, right? There's a time that you turn that off.
Yeah.
So good for you guys. It's family
I think
time.
it's great. And I asked the question because we do work with, I mean, there's a lot of smaller businesses in Wilmington, and a lot of our clients are family or generational type businesses. And it's something they currently are dealing with.
I would say for me, the family is my brother's involved in part of our business. My father is our president. So that's a little bit easier to turn off than if it was, say, my husband. My husband and I do own a business together. It's in IT, but he runs that business, and I'm just there as a sounding board when he needs me. And I have no technical expertise, so I'm really not much help in that other than I'm here if you need me. What can I do?
Yeah.
But from a parent level, sibling level, we're not together every single night at home, so it does make it
house with that individual.
So it does make it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
But holidays and weekends, you got to be careful.
I've got a question. That's interesting, the way that it's laid out. So it's your father that is at the head seat. So do you feel free, and this might be too much personal family stuff, but do you feel free to kind of give an opinion of maybe of this generation and maybe the things that you know more? Or are you kind of like, this is his vision and we're going to kind of follow his vision? Because that would be really difficult.
That's a great question. I'm a pretty assertive person. He may not agree with me, but I'm going to voice my opinion. And if there's a way I think we should be looking at taking and growing this business, I'm going to come and I'm going to advocate for that. And he may not agree with me, but he'll give me the feedback as to why that's not a good idea. He has been in this industry. He's a chemist by trade for 50 plus years. I'm not a chemist. That's not my thing, That's not where my expertise is coming from. So there's definitely something that he brings to the table that I don't have, and there's a complement there that works really well for us. And he listens. He does listen, and he understands. He wants to leave this legacy behind.
Mm-hmm. And that's I think that's probably the key.
Yeah.
We all worked with this one company in town that's a 4-generation company. And it was really interesting to kind of see the current leadership team is, the 4th generation. And while they kind of, I'm speaking for them, but it seems like they really respect the history, but they're also realizing that, hey, business is different than it was back then. And we need to kind of move forward knowing what we know, but also respecting the past. It's a good balance.
It's a good balance. It is a good balance.
Because it could be a bit of an HR nightmare, right? Like, okay, like the president's signing my paycheck, like ultimately, hopefully my dad's not ever going to get rid of me. But like if I buck up to him or like say that's absolutely wrong and we need to do X, Y, Z to keep all these global contracts, like that could be an HR nightmare.
It could.
I think where it comes in sometimes where we hear it is the employees that aren't family members that work for the business, and do they feel like the same kind of open door philosophy if they're having trouble with one member, right? That's part of that family business. Do you ever experience any of that with your team members where they may have concerns about leadership or relationship with someone on the family, that's part of the family, but the person to go report it to is also part of the family?
We have that problem a lot.
That's where I see it come up. Yeah.
So I think with our team, I have an open door policy, and I think the folks that have been there through the period that I've been there the past 12 years understand that my vision for the future of this company and continuing this legacy is that they're all there and they're part of that with us. We could not do what we do without our team, and they are every bit as important as every family member on that team. So I want to make sure that my team members feel like they're as respected and that they're listened to as if they were family. We're smaller. I know their families. I know their children if they have them. They know they can come to me with anything. They know I'm going to be pretty direct if there's an issue. But if they have an issue with someone on the team, I want to address it. We don't want to create a toxic environment.
Yeah.
It's the last thing we want. It's not good for the people on the team, and it's not good for the company.
Yeah, that's great. It sounds like you have a lot of good practices around that.
They must be doing a lot of things right to have employees that aren't part of the family sticking around for 15 years.
Absolutely.
Like that is Awesome. I don't even know. It'd be interesting to look up, like, what are the statistics of businesses that make it to, third generation family run. I mean, it can't be very many.
Well, Nordstrom was is being run
It's
by the
still
fourth
run by the
generation.
family?
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
How cool is that?
I worked for Nordstrom for decades. And it is being run, by the fourth generation. It was 3 brothers, 1 passed, so the 2 are still running it, and then there's a couple cousins that are on the executive team as well. So yeah,
That's cool.
yeah.
I think though that what you're doing is great, and we didn't make it, but it does. Like we just could not do it. But I'm telling you what, I think that the idea, I think that was our goal when we started our company, was like, oh gosh, our kids are going to take this over, and it's going to be this phenomenal opportunity for them, and gosh, we can sit back in our older years and just look at this great thing that we started. And there was a lot of allure for that, but oh well. Wah, wah. Wah, wah.
It's hard to get there. It definitely is. And I think you don't see a lot of companies that make it past generation 3. So I'm generation 2. I have 3 children, 3 daughters. I hope this makes it to generation 3 for other folks on our team that have kids. I'd love to see their children be involved. I have nieces and nephews I'd love to see in the future. Even if they never sit and actually work in an office and do anything for us, there is some legacy and some family connection that they could benefit from down the road. And that's kind of the vision. Let's make sure it's still here, but we've got to get to what I call G3. So my goal is to get us to G3 and then, set for G4.
We got to keep it like cool enough for the new
Yeah.
generation to like want to be involved. We got to create some flexible work schedules and lots of
G4.
unlimited PTO
Sounds like a nice
policies,
jet.
right?
Do you know, like this is putting you on the spot, you might not know the answer, but why, you said something interesting, why is there a break at G4? Do you know that?
No, I don't know.
That'd be
I
We
know
don't
that-
know those kids yet. They're not alive
Yeah,
yet.
they're not alive yet. But
Well, I mean, no, if it's like typically generation
Oh.
4 doesn't happen.
I think
That's what you
generation
said.
3 doesn't typically
Yeah.
happen. From the little
Yeah.
bit of reading that I've done on the topic, it is not common to find a 3rd generation family business.
And then
So
4
I
is
think
even.
statistically, you would think like, well, there has to be enough family members that it's like you think about it.
Yeah.
You got a couple of kids. It's like you're hoping that they're as passionate about whatever it was Grandpa was doing.
Yeah.
as, like,
Right,
and
right.
I think I imagine. I don't know the statistics.
My grandfather
around
was a
it.
plant pathologist.
But
That is
like,
not what I'm
not
up to.
trying to do what any of my grandparents did
No.
for work, So I imagine it's just more of like, is there an active engagement and interest in the business that carries on through those generations as just like times change, priorities change, interests change, and shift throughout the generations? I would imagine it has something to do with that. Just like, well, the business may still exist, right? Beyond the generation. It may just not be run any longer by family.
Right.
So,
How old
yeah.
are your girls?
I'm 26, 20, and 16.
Okay, all right. So the 26-year-old's in the working world. Is she considering
No, she
coming
is
back?
not.
Right?
No? Okay.
She's not interested in what Grandpa's doing.
She's
No.
out. Okay.
No, she's probably out. She's in the academic world.
I
So
gotcha.
I don't really see
Yeah.
her come. But things change, and
Yeah.
many of us have more than one career in our lifetime. So
Yeah.
her season could come.
Absolutely. So when you moved back to Wilmington, you had a real estate career in South Carolina?
In Florida.
In Florida, and then you decided to move back, and you kind of, like you said, you started from the bottom and you've moved your way up to COO. When you came back, was there kind of a commitment or a two-way promise between you and the family that like this was the goal, this was the succession plan? It was just no, okay,
Not at all.
Yes.
Not at all.
Was it your goal?
Yeah.
That's an interesting question. I wouldn't say it was my goal. I was in a season of raising children. My oldest was in high school when we moved, and my youngest was in pre-K. So this wasn't necessarily in my realm. Okay, I'm going to be COO or COO one day. As we progressed, and I kind of progressed through the process, and I'm in the daily business. Okay, well, I'd like to see this continue for the family. I'd like to continue this legacy. When they started the business years ago, my mother worked in the company as well. So there's an attachment there. And as I mentioned, I grew up around it. Probably, 3.5, maybe 4 years in, I did think, okay, I'm here. We're going to keep plugging away at this. And I set some goals I had for myself. Where can I be? What can I do? What can I bring in addition to to this business that I've already brought? We developed some new processes, some new SOPs. It's all worked out well. But I set those goals for myself. I did not walk in thinking that would ever happen. But I worked towards that in the end. Absolutely.
One of the things that I found challenging, like I've worked in really big companies and then worked in smaller companies as a consultant, and now I'm serving this mid-sized company. And we're still, in my mind, small at 140 employees, Vanica, okay? And so there are plenty of opportunities as the business evolves, but like there's not endless opportunities. It's only 140 seats, at the table versus like a Corning where, there's 50,000 seats around. It's like similar to Nordstrom, right?
Yeah.
So how do you, with a small team, how do you get people, because one of the top reasons that people stick around is, of course, they like working for their manager, they like their colleagues they work with, their work is satisfying, but also like there's an opportunity for advancement. So how do you avoid the HR nightmare of people feeling stagnant or unable to kind of flex different professional muscles on such a small team? How do you deal with that?
I think probably in the last 6 to 8 years, we've taken the mindset that you want to kind of propel your team, right? There needs to be some introspective. What are your goals? What would you like to do? Where do you see yourself? We are a family business and we like to treat our employees. They're just as important. We understand there will be a ladder that people want to climb. You don't always get the same type of treatment in a large corporation that you might get in a smaller, more intimate kind of experience in a small family business. There may be less opportunity, but I'm not getting any younger. So I'm not going to be there.
You look pretty young.
Well, thanks. I'm not. I'll be 50
I was
this
surprised
year.
you had a 26-year-old.
Yeah. No,
None of
good
us are getting any
good
younger.
Genes, so, but I think you have to see your folks. I want to see them grow. I have someone on my team right now who's taken on a leadership role in the last 18 months. She's growing. I want to elevate her. I have someone else who's worked for us for a really long time. He plays an integral role in this company. He's being elevated. We want to see that growth with them. And I want to help as much as I can. Our president would like to help as much as he can because that continues the legacy.
What about, like, especially in a business like yours that's a lot of it's supply chain, right?
Yes.
It's supply chain.
Yes.
And so technology is playing an increasing role in supply chain. Are there new roles that you're adding to the company or that you kind of see in the next 5 years of running this company that don't exist today that you'll have to maybe kind of anticipate, and that allows for growth for folks
Absolutely.
on the team as well?
Absolutely. I have a employee in our accounting department who, through her education, has some SAP background. A lot of our customers are moving to these huge SAP programs.
Yeah.
For a team that's as small as us, trying to get onboarded into some of those takes so much time. Eventually, there will be a full-time role probably for someone just to handle the SAP side that our customers are requiring us to kind of log into and handle the business flow with them. Technology will definitely play a role. We are a little bit behind the times. So we're a paper company. We have to keep files. We have to keep bill of ladings for so long, all this type of stuff. Eventually, that'll all be digital, but we're not there yet. There will be a role at some point for someone who that's what they do. Mm-hmm. That'll be an entry-level role, making all of that digital as it comes in and as it flows, and there will be room for growth.
Working on workflows and things like that.
Yeah, I think that's big. As we work with a lot of growing organizations, I work with a lot of companies where I'm like, okay, we need to have these sessions where every 6 months, 12 months, we look at the org chart and we do some aspirational sessions. So not just what we have now, what do we think it's going to take in 12 months, right? So if this is the volume we want to do in the next 5 years, where are the new roles and the people that are going to have to get added in order to support that business? So it's the same thing. And when you're thinking about career pathing and growth for people, it's really helping people understand, well, even though that role doesn't exist today, if it did, what would be the skills that you would need to have that role? And let's start building those competencies because we don't know in 12 months what roles we're
Well,
going
and
to
you
have.
don't probably know, too, your customer base. Hopefully, you're going to grow into different sectors and get, different geographic areas for your new customers, So then, in addition to new jobs, then you're going to have, obviously, just more needs as your business expands.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter how big the company is. You should always be talking about like, what are the roles that we're going to need in the next 18, 24 months that don't exist right now? Who are we going to fill them with? And if there's nobody here that's like a viable candidate, we've got like a good path to get them ready now versus ready later, then you got to go external. And what does that all look like? Are there 6 people in the entire United States that do that job? Okay, we should probably start looking now because we're going to need them in 2025. So, and courting them. Right? So, it's an exercise that we go through with literally every company that we work with.
It should be part of your strategic planning. Really should be.
Yeah.
Your
The people.
talent pipeline. But it's the truth, right?
Do you want to teach that webinar I have today?
I know. It's like I've used that wording a lot, but it's the truth, right?
It is the
definitely
truth.
have
It is
to
the
be
truth.
looking out for that kind of thing.
You want to elevate the team that have been with you. You want to know there is room for growth, even though we are a family business and we're on the smaller side. There's going to be roles in the future that you could absolutely walk into. You might be able to create your own role.
Yeah. And that's fun.
Right. It's like, how do
Absolutely.
you show up differently to kind of build the case around why you should be in a different role or you deserve that elevated title? That's the nice part probably about smaller companies and smaller businesses is there is a lot more flexibility and agility to kind of create these like special snowflake type jobs. So like, even though the role doesn't exist, like, is that person really good? And now they've outgrown their skills and they're taking on more responsibility. We can give them a new title. We can give them a 10% pay increase, right? Whereas my corporation's like, you have to wait till the job opens up and then you have to apply for it. We weren't just adding like special snowflake kind of roles all over the place.
No.
It's like, no, the role already exists and you got to wait till somebody leaves it so you can take it. Yeah.
Well, it's a great way to own your career if
Yes.
you think of a position that you would like to see created and you're there advocating why this needs to be created and why you're the candidate for that position.
Yeah, I think that's great. It's really encouraging.
We, like when I worked at Corning, the HR function there was always sort of like cutting edge, like 10 years ahead of most other businesses. And the talent planning process that they rolled out 15 years ago was great. I mean, even in today's standards where every employee has like an internal resume, a talent profile where you talk about like your career key achievements, it doesn't have to be here where you're working now. Like, what did you do before? I don't actually remember. Like, sorry, but your manager does not remember what you did before you worked here. And so like, and then also identifying what's the next 2 or 3 roles that you would really like? And then what's the one role you aspire for kind of in the 5 to 7 year period? And you would literally pick a seat. Like, I want to be in the director of talent acquisition in Corning, New York in 5 years. And then you would talk with your manager once a year about how do I get there? What's my individual development plan? And like, you'd follow up on that with some regularity, but you could pick seats, right? I want to be Wade. I want to be the plant manager in Pune. And that's really helpful because it gets specific.
It probably lasts, your career then is extended by a few more years, right?
Well, it keeps you like engaged,
Right.
A little bit longer. I was an HR manager at Nordstrom and I'm like, I was really close with the director. I liked what they did, but I saw a lot of opportunities there where like she did not have the store manager experience. So it was hard for her to be the direct business partner of the leader that supported the store managers because she didn't really always understand what they did. And I saw this gap of like, I think I need to go be a store manager first before I become an HR director. But I knew I wanted to be the HR director eventually. But in order to be the store manager, I had to also then go back to the merchant team and work on that job for a year. Then I had to go to the rack for a year. Then I had to go to the full line for a couple of years. Like HR director I became the HR director finally 6 years later.
Did you map that out for yourself or did somebody map it for you?
I knew in my head because I had already been with the company a decade, so I understood how pathing kind of worked. But no, I had a great store manager at the time that I was her HR business partner, and she was like, I think you're going to be in a lot bigger jobs than you even think, right? So she kind of started it. And then the SVP that I ended up being his HR business partner, right? We got on the phone and he's like, all right, you want to do that job? Let's get you back on the merchant team. Let's start it going right now. There's actually a job open. And I took that job. That's really good. So I think there was a lot of good people around Nordstrom that helped like mentor you through that because everyone stayed there decades. I was not an anomaly. So it was like how do you keep yourself engaged after 2 decades?
But
you just keep changing jobs.
But you think about just all the awesome experiences that you got, similar to you, like where you made some lateral moves for a long-term play.
Yeah.
And it worked out really well. And you're able to now consult with a high level
And
of
now I
business
don't
acumen.
work Fridays.
Yeah.
I try to avoid an extra. Yeah, I try to work 3 days a week if I can.
You're working after 5 today. Sorry.
Yeah, this one's a long one. That's
Yeah.
rare.
But you owned your career. I mean,
Yeah.
you really did, with the help
Yeah.
of those around you that helped elevate you and helped you think, okay, this is the path that you need to take.
Right.
This is what you need to be thinking about it. So you were consciously working towards that, even though maybe it took a little bit longer than you expected.
Yeah.
That's what I think is important as a leader, that you're instilling in those that are on your team.
Yeah. And I think what was important there was I was ambitious, but I also understood that the way I got the next job was to nail the assignment I was in. So I was not someone who was constantly thinking about what's next, what's next. And I was never asking what's next, what's next. Most of the jobs I took, it was because I was nailing my current assignment and someone was like, here's a person over here that we think we should be moved, right? Like I was kind of always being positioned by
On a
my
succession
leaders
plan.
and other people. And I was so focused on just doing the job I was in at that time. And I knew if I did that and I showed up really well every day, I didn't need to really be worrying about it. I knew in the back of my head, but I knew that the other people would be like, okay, she's ready. Like,
But I think that we talked about that in another podcast. So if you have somebody that's, fresh out of college and they've been with you for 3 months and they're like, boom, I want the next seat. And you're like,
Whoa.
slow your roll.
Slow your roll.
I'm going to put you down in like downshift
Yeah.
and we're going to take it down. Because what you say is completely true. You really have to nail your position that you're in. Show that there's value, that you're a value add.
Absolutely.
And then at that point, someone will recognize, or like you said, you have to start making your own career moves.
Well, you hope it's both, right?
Yeah.
You, in order to have that plan, you want to move, you know what your path is. You know, if you don't do well at step 2, that you're not going to make it to step 3, which means you're not going to make it to step 6.
Right.
So you have to constantly perform. You have to be accountable. I'm big about accountability. Like, you got to be accountable. Sorry, not only for your career, but for what you're doing every day in your daily tasks. That will propel you. Do a good job. Be accountable. Go above and beyond.
yeah, I agree.
also add one thing. I always like to add coachability. I think
I would agree,
without that, you're just going to be against the wall. I think that there are some people that are really coachable, and that's the person that I would probably invest my time in, because I know that they can grow. Other than those people that are
this
just like,
week, in like someone asked me like about coaching someone, and I go, I don't really want to coach that person. I don't think they're coachable.
Yeah.
Like I literally just said, I'm like, I think it'd be a waste of my time, and I would just be annoyed by it, and I don't think they would enjoy it either, because I don't think they're coachable.
Well,
young listeners, be coachable.
yeah,
Yes,
be
yeah.
coachable. I think it's great advice. And to be honest, we're back to this human element, but say thank you also when the company is taking care of you. Don't always, it's sort of back to this vein of never being satisfied, right? You're in a position for 3 or 6 months. You're asking for the salary increase. You're asking for the next position, and you still haven't nailed the position you're in. But then even if the market goes crazy like it did over the last couple of years, especially in technical roles, if you're being taken care of, like every once in a while, stop with a little humility and thank your boss for taking care of you. Thank you goes a long way, and that's what a leader does, is recognize the people around them that are supporting them and making them look good. And so if you're being taken care of and you haven't said thank you to your boss, you probably should go walk in there with like a little box of Ted Lasso biscuits and say thanks. So
I would agree. Yeah, that fast. I mean, we have these conversations all the time with people, and I remember just thinking like, well, you've been here less than 2 years. Like, why are you so frustrated?
What
that
did you
haven't
expect?
been promoted yet, right? And really, when you break that down, right? And I always step back and I ask the questions because I'm curious, like where that comes from. And really, the answer usually I get is a comparison answer. They're comparing themselves to others that did get the role. And then I have to do some, let me break it down for you.
Are you coachable?
Are you a coach?
That person has also been here 3 times this long, and they're managing 3 times the amount of projects that you have, and they're leading 4 people, and you're leading 1 person. It's like, don't be in such a rush. Focus on what you're doing now. It will come. It will come if you continue doing this. But if you sit here and be disgruntled about it for a year,
That's not
it's
a good
not
look.
going to get
No.
you to where you want to go. So, like, we got to refocus that. But
There's also so many things that I think people can do on their own, right? So if all of a sudden you're not seeing that you're moving and you think that you're nailing your job, well, there's tons of certifications that you can get. There's, school that you can go back to. You need to really look at yourself and bring value to the company. And by doing that, it also increases your shine around you gets
your
increased.
potential.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You have to, again, you have to be accountable for your own success. And that's a core thing for me. You can't necessarily always fake it till you make it. You got to put in the work. You got to put in the hours. And maybe you've been there longer. Maybe someone else came in the meantime and they've kind of outshined you, right? You need to understand that you got to make up the difference. And that's where things become very introspective and where you need to learn, what can I do better? How can I bring more to the table? How do I need to educate myself? What are the steps I need to take? And that's a great time to walk in and sit with your leader and have a real conversation, in my opinion. That's, you want to know, hey, this person's been here 3 years and I've been here 5. What's going on? They're moving up and I'm stagnant. Why am I stagnant? Be open to receive that feedback and take it in a very positive manner, because 9 times out of 10, the person sitting there giving that to you really wants you to succeed.
Yeah, everyone wants to be part of a success story. I think going in and saying, I'm a manager now. I want to be a senior director. Help me get there. What does that look like? Let them noodle on it and then map a plan together. But like, you got to lay out, like, I want to be in that role. I want to be the HR manager in Wilmington, North Carolina. Help me get there. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to help you.
It was really interesting. I just worked with a group and we did a satisfaction survey, and the lowest piece on the satisfaction survey was they didn't feel that anyone ever approached them for taking on additional leadership.
So they didn't feel appreciated.
Right. But here's the thing. Nobody ever went to their manager and said, hey, I've been here for a while and I really want to do something else. I really want to be over in this department. This is really what excites me. And so you have to, we went back to this, but you have to really own your own career, because at the end of the day, someone who's managing you might not have you on their radar. They might have just like getting their work done or making sure that they hit their targets.
Well, there's 2 individuals involved in career pathing, right? And so we're each responsible. If I'm the manager or I'm in the employee, we're each responsible for making sure those conversations happen, right? And so I would never advise anyone to wait on the other, right? It's like it's a 2-way conversation. And both individuals have to play an active part in that.
Right. And as an employee, you can also say no. So kind of like conversely, I had a situation where I was like, I want to get I think I'm in my dream job. I want to get my head right and get really, really good in this position. And corporate came to me and said, 10 months in, like, do you want to move to Texas? And I was like, can I think about it? Like, I just got here. I haven't even been here a year. And I went back and I said no. And they kind of made me feel bad about it. And, but you know what? I'm so glad I did say no, because I got to stay in North Carolina and like been here in Wilmington for 15 years now, raising my family here and never want to leave. nccareercoast.com, go check it out.
Yeah.
But, you can also say no. So if you're a high
I
flyer
said no
flying under, like
many
you could say
times.
no. Yeah.
I said no many times.
Yeah.
Many of them were about relocation things where I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I relocated 3 times
You
in
can
3
be
years.
super
I'm staying
ambitious
here right
and
now.
still make it.
But yeah, I think there was a part in my career where it's like you kind of choose a path. You stick with the merchandising side or you stick kind of to the field and the store sides. And I was probably equally good at both and could have gone either way. But one, you had to move to Seattle. And the other one, I could stay where I lived. So I was like, I'm never going to be a merchant.
I'll be the
Beach,
sky.
beach.
But yeah, there's a lot
You
of
gotta
pressure. But yeah, and you always get that, like, if you say no 3 times, you're never going to get asked again. Well, let me tell you, I
That's
still
enough.
continue to get asked, and I said no
Keep
plenty
being
of
good at your
times.
job. You'll get asked.
Yes.
Don't you think that'll change, though, too? I think with the younger generations coming into the workforce who, in my opinion, know how to set boundaries a little bit better,
Yes, they're so good
that's
at
going to
it.
have to change,
Beth,
especially for
I
some
need
of
to
those.
learn.
I need to
You
be
need to
reverse
learn
coach.
from the Gen Zers how to set boundaries.
Especially from the larger corporations where there is, maybe more opportunity to do that, but they set their boundaries.
So there
They
was a
really do.
recent, I don't know where I read it or someone sent it to me, I think, from one of our businesses that I work with. The amount of relocation and mobility has like dropped significant. And I
I've seen
can't
it
remember the
myself.
statistic,
Yeah.
but people are feeling like they don't need to move. There's plenty of jobs in their market and they can like live both sides of their life. I think the mobility rate has gone down by like, I don't know.
Well,
I
that's
can't
why
even
we're running
know.
a
I would have had the
talent
statistic in front of
attraction
me.
campaign down here.
But
NC
people are
career
not moving
coach.
any longer. People
No.
are not relocating in the same ways that they were a decade ago.
Definitely not
Yeah.
to desirable areas. I mean, like, who the hell would want to move to New Jersey right now? Sorry to anyone listening in New Jersey.
We love New Jersey.
Maybe
Keep
that's one of
writing
the two states
in.
that doesn't. I mean, I lived in Jersey for Bergen
No, I would
County.
never move back to
I
Philadelphia.
remember though
I did it
being,
once, never
being
again.
a kid, and nothing was worse when you got home from school and your mom and dad are sitting there and you're like, ugh.
Sitting at the table
Yeah.
waiting
That
for
never
you.
happened.
I was
to
like,
me.
what's the
Yeah,
deal? We're
my
moving
dad was like,
again.
my
Oh.
dad did not like change to begin with, and he used my sister and I as an excuse. And there was many times we came back later in life, and he's like, I had an opportunity to go work for 3M, but we didn't want to uproot you guys and move to Minneapolis. And I was like, we hate it where we live, my sister and I. Like, we were not attached to anything about Toledo, Ohio.
You
And
want
I was like, let's not use Kelly and I being in junior high school
Yeah.
as a reason why you wouldn't relocate from all your friends. Like, let's not.
Oh, we
'Cause
were
would've
the
moved.
least of the consideration. They're like, we're going. I'm like,
Yeah, I don't think
Look
I
how
I
would.
have a
adjusted
new
you
little
are now,
boyfriend
with no
Yeah.
boundaries.
Yeah, no boundaries.
No boundaries.
No boundary, Beth.
No.
You have to go back and listen to the last episode about Beth's boundaries.
I'll tell you
Okay,
later.
Wink,
Yeah.
wink.
Well, awesome. Thank you for being here.
My
Yes.
pleasure.
And thank
My
you,
pleasure.
ladies.
Thanks for having me.
Any kind of closing comments or suggestions about owning your career?
You can reach your goals, work for it, advocate for yourself, reach out to your leaders. It's absolutely doable. Don't count yourself short. Just don't. Work, prove your worth. You can do it.
Awesome.
Those are good last words.
I love it. Hey, thanks for joining another episode of HR Nightmares. Go check out Leath HR Group. Make sure you're subscribing to our YouTube channel for HR Nightmares so that you can get the updates when the new episodes drop twice a month. Check us out on TikTok, Instagram. Definitely follow us on LinkedIn. Make sure you connect with all of us, Lisa Leath, Beth, Looney, Amy Conway, and also Tammy Benson from AdMark International on LinkedIn. We'd love to connect. Thank you so much. Have a great day.